morning, Brighton SEO. Really happy to be here. I hope you had coffee and I hope you're ready to run because it's AI game time. And I hope you're ready to play. So you've probably seen this chart already. AI search is there. Some say the game is changing, some say it's just a game extension, and some pretend it's a whole new one. I don't care if we should call this SEO anymore. I just know that it's a game to be played by SEOs. And French rapper Caris once said, just because you don't play doesn't mean the game stops, so you should be ready to play. So in this context, what is our biggest challenge? Zero-click search, the SEO nightmare. Before you even think about this, you should care about AI search data. This is our current challenge. You see the scoreboard? It just tells us who wins the score, but we don't know how. And just like basketball, SEO is a data-driven game. But AI search is a black box. We don't get to see the court. We don't get to watch the game. And this is because there is no AI search console yet. You see, we only have access to the clicks. We don't know the prompt. We don't know the prompt volume, no intent. So how are we supposed to coach a website with a winning strategy when we don't actually see the players? So we need to answer these questions. What happens before the clicks? And actually, AI search barely brings any clicks anyway. So if we take a step back, so here you have Cloudflare radar, so it's tracking AI bot activity. And this is what comes before the clicks. Actually, a lot of AI bot traffic. And you know the saying, when life gives you lemons, make it a log file analysis, and there is hope. So this is a server log file. This is a log line you get every time a bot hits your website. It tells you who is coming and where he goes. And tools like Oncrawl are turning this raw data into dashboards, actionable dashboards. And for years, in technical SEO, we've been using this data for Googlebot, tracking the behavior, studying crawl budget optimization, and things like this. And is this different with AI bots? So actually, same method, same files, same tools. It's just that AI bots, they tell a different story. So just like Google bots, you can spot them using the user agent. And as you can see, we have multiple AI platforms. They're using multiple AI bots and for multiple crawl purposes, and that's why it's different. So before we start with this log analysis together, we need to understand this question: why are they using those bots anyway? So if we look at how the chatbots are handling the prompts, they have two game strategies: the model training knowledge, and then they added the web search tool, the grounding process. So we have two teams of bots and 3 players. And let's look at this and see what insights we can get. So first team is the knowledge team, and knowledge team is using the training bots. They crawl your website to scrape content that may be used in LLM training. So some of the players you need to look for: GPT-bot from OpenAI's team, Claude-bot from Anthropic, CC-bot from Common Crawler, and ByteSpider from the company behind TikTok. So here we have a chart that, for a website, tracks the volume of visits from those bots. So when we look at these players, it doesn't look like they play well. There is no rhythm, no strategy. And if we compare to Googlebot, it seems they're trying to crawl every page they can find. Google has a smarter strategy. It takes into account internal linking, quality signals, and on the other side, like a lot of status code errors, because they crawl everything they can. Anyway, should we even track those bots? Are they useful? Actually, most of the collected data never makes it into the model. The data stays on the bench, never plays. And that's because there is a huge data cleaning pipeline. And in the logs, we only get to see the first step, crawling. And we don't know what happens next. We are not able to correlate crawling and model training. So no real insight here. So we shouldn't care about the training bots. It's not correlated with the model training. So good news, according to SEMrush, so the study is a bit old, but still the only one I found. So almost half of the prompts are supposed to be handled with the grounding strategy. And more recent study from OpenAI about prompt intent shows that 25% of the prompts is for seeking information, so using the grounding strategy. Also, GPT-5 favors search over knowledge. You probably read this article from Dan Petrovic on the topic, a must read. And this is why we should focus on the grounding team. And grounding team has 2 players, essential in the grounding process. I call it the dream team because that's the 2 players you need to watch for. So what is the grounding process? Just to summarize, a prompt with search activated, web search, content scraping, and then you get the answer with citations and links, sources. On step 2, system queries a search engine or a custom index. So ChatGPT is going to rely on Bing, but actually they switch to Google, and Perplexity has its own index. So that's where this players is useful, the AI search bot. It's crawling your website for indexing or improving the search results. So the players here, for example, OpenAI search bot is working on improving the quality of the search results from ChatGPT. And Perplexity is going to really index pages like Googlebot does. And yes, we can compare them to Googlebots. But if we look at the data, it's a bit different. They don't crawl as much as Google does. That's probably because they don't crawl the entire web. They start from the SERPs, from search results. And another interesting pattern. So in log analysis, we use crawl frequency. So it's how many visits per page per day in average. And for Google, it can be up to 100, depending on the website. But here, on average, it's 1 visit per page per day for those AI search bots. Another interesting pattern is that they favor new pages. So this means that, so here you have crawl pages and pages crawl for the first time. So day after day, they tend to crawl pages that they didn't crawl before. So all this data is useful. It shows you the interest from the AI chatbot in your content, but it's not enough. It's only showing one side of the court. We don't open the black box here. So let's look at step 3. And here we are reaching money time. That's the key step. The system sends a user bot to crawl pages selected from the search results. And when this AI user bot enters the game, it is to crawl your website to find the answer to a user prompt and in real time. This means that if you have a visit from this bot on your website, the chatbot is trying to use your content to answer somebody's question. And the players you need to look for, they all have the same name, platform-user. And that's because they represent the users. This is our way to enter the court, to watch the game and see what happens, to open the black box. So here we are with the data. We're looking at a website and user bot hits per day. It's showing how much and how often AI chatbots are using the content of this website per day. If we zoom in on a B2B website, weekly pattern, ChatGPT user, you see the drop on Saturday and Sundays, just like SEO traffic would drop. If you look at the daily patterns, bot hits drop during nighttime, just like SEO traffic would. We can correlate user bot activity and prompt activity on the chatbots. And here, that's the key slide. That's what I want to say today. We can use user bot visits, so user bot hits, we call it in log analysis, as a proxy for impressions, as a proxy for prompt volume, to measure visibility volume, to measure your efforts. Sorry, it's not perfect. It doesn't always mean you get a citation in the answer. First, Because poor content never plays. Like empty pages, thin content, irrelevant content, LLM is not going to use it, even if the bot comes and scrape the content. Also, things can go wrong during the crawling process. So, content behind JavaScript, invisible to these bots. Same for the paywalls. And status code is going to tell you if things are going right or wrong. Speaking of status code, we spotted that ChatGPT, actually it's the only platform that is using a caching system. So this means that before trying to crawl, they check if there is a more recent version of the page, like Google would do. This also means that you will lose part of the data because it doesn't need always to crawl the content to answer. Because if the page is in cache, it doesn't need to crawl. On the other hand, if you have redirects, it's going to count 2 visits for one prompt. One for the redirect and one for the 200. And also, for one prompt, they may crawl several pages on your website, so several hits. So knowing those limits, how do we turn that data into a key visibility metrics that you're going to use for your reportings? So the first step is you need to filter that data. You can filter on the status code 200 or 3 or 4, so you get more accurate volumes of data. You can also filter on your pages, so get rid of the irrelevant pages, irrelevant content. And then, once the data is cleaned, there are 2 metrics you can use for reporting. So bot hits, I told you it's how many visits per bot, how many visits from AI bots, so the volume of visits. Unique pages crawled, it's really the number of different pages that those bots crawled during the selected period. And then you build your AI search visibility progression and you measure it over time on a weekly basis, monthly basis. So here we have the volume of visits, volume of unique pages, pages crawled for the first time as well. And you can measure if you're progressing, if your efforts are paying. You can also use that data to spot pages that are being used the most by those AI bots. So you order the data by bot hits. Actually, here I'm using screenshots from Oncrawl, but this is a work you can do yourself using your server logs, of course. To go further, we can even calculate ratios. So if you want a CTR, you use clicks from OpenAI, clicks from ChatGPT, versus visits from ChatGPT user, and you get your CTR. If you want some sort of a crawl coverage, so how many pages are crawled by those bots versus size of the website, and then you get your ratio. And this you can track over time as well. So okay, log analysis with your bots, it's fine to report, but it's also very useful to take actions and find insights. It's stats that wins you the game. So here I have a filter. So I'm looking for pages crawled by ChatGPT user that didn't answer with the right status code. So it's a missed opportunity to get a citation because my website wasn't able to answer the bot. So you can take actions. We can also spot all the pages that are crawled by ChatGPT user, and this works with other bots, that never makes any clicks, so they never convert. Well, if that's the objective anyway. Also, you can look for pages that are ranking in Google, making traffic, but that ChatGPT or other bots never crawled before. So maybe there is an issue somewhere here that you can fix. And even better, you can use segmentation. So you put your pages into groups with rules. This gives a different perspectives on the data. Here we have a split between English and French language on a blog. And what we see is that chatbots, user bots, they use the English content instead of the French one, even if you ask the question in French. Probably because they translate the queries during the query funnel process. You can also use article topics, so you see what kind of topics are working the best, or page types. Even better, you can cross this data with your crawl data, so you can go further in the analysis. So here I have size of content, and for each size of content, I have the volume of visits from user bot hits. The longest content is also the one that drives most traffic on this website. We can cross this data with Search Console, because I told you that they're using Google as a source for the search part. Here we have a breakdown of the visits by average position ranges. It turns out AI chatbots gives a chance to content that is not ranking well. And there is way, way more to explore. That's just a couple examples of what you can do with data. So yes, final run last quarter. So a couple more highlights I wanted to show you, things you can get from your logs. AI chatbot updates. So again, OpenAI. So we have the 3 bots traffic from hundreds of websites. And June, search feature update. The search bot had a peak of traffic, just like Google would crawl your website even more before the core updates. GPT-5 release. I told you they favor search over knowledge. So they started using even more the ChatGPT user, visiting your website. Robo.txt. So if you want to check if they are actually checking this file. So just one example. ChatGPT user suddenly stopped crawling that file. Maybe because they are using a search bot instead, or maybe they don't care. The LLMS.txt file doesn't look right? That's because I don't have data. But it doesn't mean it's the truth. Things are changing so fast. Like, I wouldn't tell you, don't care about this file. And James is going to tell you about this file, how you can use it, how this works with LLMs. But yeah, on the data I have access to, I didn't see anything. But some people actually found proof that it's able to read the file, it's able to crawl it, etc. Did you know that you can also use log analysis to track your traffic? And it's even better. So you can use the referrer, so you spot the previous page, and you know where the click comes from. And it's better than analytics tools. No sampling, no tracking loss, so no GDPR, cookie consent issues. And you have the status code, so you know if the visitor actually reached a page that answers. And speaking of that, Peter Serasis is speaking this afternoon at 3 p.m. On log analysis as well, and how you can use that data for analytics in general. Okay, last slide. My favorite one. Log analysis, it's not a nice to have anymore. That's my conclusion. It's not sitting on the bench and waiting to play. It's the most valuable player. In the next months and years, you are going to use that data to do SEO. You will have to. So last time I asked, are you ready to play? And yes, end of the game, but I'm in for overtime. You can join me at Oncrawl's booth 2. We can connect. I actually published the slides. It was scheduled, so if you want to check them. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Thank you, everyone.